Hi guys, sorry. Just so that the show requires this sort of a drip, I just dropped off. The internet conked off for a bit. I'm back online live now, and welcome to today's episode of Reminisce with Ash. And like you had seen already, about who's going to be joining me today on this episode and what game we will be talking about. We will be talking about one of the most amazing games and amazing innings played by this particular player. And obviously, I've already gone on record and said Virat is going to be live with me today, and he will be joining me anytime. But before that, I'm just going to give you an update on what game we'll be talking about. We will be talking about one of his finest knocks in the days where he was showing and stamping his authority on world cricket as one of the best batsmen going around. Yes, if you had not guessed it right, it was the 183 that he'd scored against Pakistan in Dhaka. I remember that game. It came at the back of his wonderful, wonderful innings at Hobart against Sri Lanka to take India to the final of the series in Australia. It was a knock that I remember, but immediately after that particular knock in Jan or Feb, I can't remember exactly, he came down and played the tri-series in Bangladesh. It might have not been the tri-series, it must have been the quadrangular, and Virat played this unbelievable knock. We were chasing 329 and he got 183 of those. That's literally almost chasing it down single-handedly. I think Sachin Paji might have made a 50 there, and Rohit also chipped in with a 50, a lovely partnership between the both of them for the third wicket. And early wicket 0 for 1 when Virat joined Sachin Paji in the centre, and it was one of the most memorable knocks. And before we get Virat to join us today, I would like to know if you guys have any questions, and most importantly, if you liked the promos theme music. How many of you are the Game of Thrones fans here? And if you've got any questions, please post it on your comment section, and we will be taking them. Yes, it is 183 that Virat got. And in fact, interestingly, all our captains from the past, be it Kapil Dev or be it MS Dhoni or be it Virat Kohli, they've all got that magical score of 183, and we all know that, don't we? So Virat will be talking extensively about that and a few more questions that he'll answer for us. Hi Mayank, you're in attendance, waiting to see how Virat goes about it, like how he goes about it when he goes out to bat. Okay, thank you for the amazing promo music. I'm a big Game of Thrones fan, like I've always mentioned, so it was very fitting that you put him in that bracket, right? And today is the season finale. Hi Mayank. Today is the season finale, and we will be moving on to something more interesting from tomorrow. It is one of oh, here we go. Timing. The skipper is here on time. Okay, he's going to join me, and I'm actually nervous because he's the skipper and have to be really, really watchful of what I ask him. Hi, Virat.
Man.
What's up, Virat? Nice to see you.
Good to see you, man. Long hair and all. I'm liking it. What's up?
Hopefully, nothing much, man. Getting a little bored right now because it's so hard not to play the game for me. You know me, and it's becoming very, very hard now.
I know. How's family?
Family is
kids,
good. Family is good. Their kids are good. They usually interrupt, but today I've asked them to be in the terrace, so they'll not come down.
Okay, your wife's okay? All good?
Yeah, everybody's fine. Parents are okay too. How's Anushka?
She's well. She's healthy. Parents are healthy. Family all okay. Everyone's safe. So that's been a positive. But yeah, it's tough for us as well here, man. It's much more difficult for a lot of other people. But yeah, we'll just have to see how it goes, I guess.
Right. Thank you first of all for joining me. It's
Pleasure,
something
man.
it's something that I brought about as just an idea because one, I was getting bored and I wanted to put some positivity out there. And like I told you, it would be great if people know what went on in your head when you made that 183. I have updated them about it. Do you remember how you played at Hobart and followed this up right after that?
Yeah, I clearly remember. I think it was that tri-series in Australia where we played in Hobart, and I remember when we were warming up, the chat was not all that optimistic. I still remember because our chances were so bleak. And to be honest, even I wasn't in the most competitive zone because it had been a long tour and not a very successful one. So the motivation factor was very low in the group. The energy was low, and we were all saying, okay, one last game, we just need to play well and see how it goes. And bonus point was not even something that we were thinking about, especially looking at that pitch and how Sri Lanka started. You remember that. So yeah, it was strange that suddenly out of nowhere, and that's when you figure out some things are just meant to happen. out of nowhere we got that boost. Started stringing partnerships. I think Paji and Virubhai had a brilliant partnership up front. They were very aggressive. Then Gauti Bhai and me, we had a great partnership. I think he got 50 or 60, if I'm not wrong. Then Raina came in and he changed the momentum of the game. And then that's when him and me discussed, we have to break it down into two T20 games. That was the first kind of revelation of chasing big totals for me. In a country that's not ours, there's conditions that were not ours. Although the pitch was really good, but still, the sense of not being in total control of the conditions that you play in, it was a revelation for me personally. It was something that I discovered about my game. I can have that belief to stay in those moments when things are tough and things are not looking too positive. And I remember that whole season. It was from that Test 100 in Adelaide to continuously stringing in scores, and that was a season, a phase of 6 to 8 months where I really realized a lot about my own game, and came into my own. As far as my skills were concerned, I wasn't the most. I would say I was very competitive, but I wasn't very sure or in control of what I wanted to do before. Because when you come in new, you're still figuring out how to go about it. At the international stage, you want to be feared, you want to be respected. You just don't want to walk in and say, he's one of the youngsters. We'll just knock him over, or if this bowler we can take him on. You want to be that guy who's feared. When you have the ball in hand, I'm sure you want the batsman to think, bloody hell, we got to be at our A game against Ash. We all play for that. That was the phase where I started to realize it, and then it led to that game that you were talking about, and that was quite special. Yes.
Right. This particular game against Pakistan, was it the same game where you and Rohit collided in the square leg fence?
Yeah, it was. It was very funny, and I remember MS wasn't too happy about it because, anyways, they were. I think they got 320. We were chasing 330, and they were big partnerships early on, and then we sort of messed up. It was supposed to be 1, and we gave away 3 runs. And I remember Irfan running after the ball slowly and throwing it back to MS, and MS was like, "How can these two guys just collide and give 3 away?" That.
Do you know who the bowler was?
Who else?
Yeah,
I remember batsman was Umar Akmal, and I don't know the non-striker. Was it Yunus Khan?
Might have been Nazir Jamshed. I'm not sure. I'm actually not sure. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, but I remember Umar Akmal played it like that. I was at deep mid wicket, and Rohit was deep square leg. And I came in, Rohit was going for the ball, and my right side of my head hit his shoulder. And then Evan came in asking me how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. So
no concussion substitutes then.
No, not at all. That would have been strange. But I don't think that it was that serious. It was just, in the heat of the moment where you're going for the ball and then you don't, suddenly 5 minutes, you don't realize where you are.
Right. Okay. Now getting into that knock itself, it was, I mean, watching it now, it doesn't seem special because we've seen you do what you've done over the years. But then it was like, it made the world take notice and say, wow, who's this guy, right? And what was going through your head? Because it was not an easy attack to face. Umar Gul, Aizaz Cheema, Wahab Riaz, Syed Ajmal. And Syed Ajmal was at his peak then, right? So can you talk us through about what's going in your head?
Well, you're right. The bowling attack was quite potent. I think at that time, they were a really, sort of challenging bowling attack to face because of the variation they had. And obviously, there was Afridi, there was Syed Ajmal, there was Umar Gul, there was Aizaz Cheema, and there was Wahab. Wahab was there as well. Then Hafiz used to bowl in between. He got Gauti out in the first over, if I remember. And I walked in at 3. So it was high pressure game. Plus, Bangladesh wickets, it was sort of dry early on. Then the dew settles later. But I think for the first 20-25 overs, it was quite in their favor as far as conditions are concerned. But I clearly remember I was just happy batting next to Paji. That was his last ODI game, as it turned out to be. He scored 50. We got 100 partnerships, so that was a memorable sort of anecdote for me. It will always remain like that. But yeah, as I said, Ash, you don't really. The only intent is to make the team win. And in that process, you start realizing more about your own game. That yes, against any team in the world, any bowling attack, I can go the distance and I can make my team win. That realization, luckily for me, happened while playing those games, and not just thinking about them outside and just hoping that they would happen. they naturally just happened because I was constantly boosting myself up to want situations like that. And I think that game turned out to be a game changer for me, as you rightly said. It was a Sunday, I remember. India, Pakistan, the whole country is watching, and suddenly everyone takes notice of what's going on. So yeah, I fondly remember that game. The chase was tough. Rohit played a brilliant innings. I think he got 60 odd. And in the end, MS and Raina finished. And we finished, I think, 3 overs to spare or something like that, chasing 330, which was quite memorable for me. But yeah, I constantly remember that game fondly. And you spoke about Saeed Ajmal, and he was at his peak. And I clearly remember we played a T20 World Cup in Sri Lanka, if you remember, before that.
Correct. Yeah.
And there was a warm-up game where I decided that I got 75 against them. And then in the main game, I got 60 or 70 again, not out. And we won that game. And I remember in the warm-up game when I was playing him, I told myself, I'm going to start playing him like a leg spinner.
Leg spinner.
Because his dusra was quite difficult to face. And his off spinner was not that lethal. So I said, I'm going to try and hit him over covers consistently. And it just paid off. And as soon as I negated his dusra, then, the potency of his threat became lesser and lesser. And even in that game, if you remember, I scored most of my runs against him through the offside. And I just kept doing that, kept wanting to hit against the turn as well, whatever, turn he was getting through the pitch. But my only aim was I'm going to make him unsettled with his dusra. He should fear not bowling the dusra to me. Then I'm on top of my game.
Right, because I don't have to ask that question. I would have asked, being the off spinner, I wanted to ask, why did you score all the runs through the offside? Because he had the sweeper up, you kept cutting him, then you hit one, and the ball went off the edge and went over third man. I remember it very clearly.
Yeah.
So that was like the pace at which he was bowling, right? And you answered it perfectly anyway. But Virat, on a lighter note, I've always wanted to ask you and MS at some stage later when we were done, because during the playing days, it's not so reasonable to ask you. You believe in extraterrestrial livings, right? So is there any way that you're connected to the extraterrestrials in some way or the other?
I don't know. I'm quite intrigued by extraterrestrial life. That is true. I would not deny that. Look, I believe in energy a lot. I believe that anything is possible. I believe that sometimes on the field, even you would have experienced that, something you're thinking about and it happens exactly like that. You're so convinced about it happening because you're so present in that moment that you just want to make most of that opportunity, and things just pan out that way. And it's amazing. That realization is something else. So you understand that, there's something bigger going on here, and all you have to do is just focus on playing the game the right way and having the right intent. But yeah, I would love to see a UFO someday, and that's one of my aims in life.
No, but I have the serious doubt that you are in connect, because they used to say the scientist Tesla was in connect with extraterrestrials to create all those inventions. There is a myth, right? So I always have this doubt about you. Let's figure it out later on. Maybe I can spread it around.
Okay, cool.
There is a reason why I asked that question, Virat, because you were the under-19 Indian captain, right? Where you triumphed in Kuala Lumpur, if I'm not wrong. So from there on, there is a certain set of them. At least about 50% of the team went on to play for India. Not sure about the longevity, but it constantly happens, right? A lot of people make the cut and a lot of them don't. And you have gone on to not just make the cut from captain under-19 India to become captain of the Indian team. So how has this transition happened? Is there something that was process-driven, or has it just happened?
Well, look, I was someone who always liked taking responsibility. Then under-19 happened, and not many people know that I became captain of the under-19 team 1 tour before the World Cup. I wasn't the captain before that. Okay. We went to South Africa. That's when I became captain, and then I was given captaincy in the under-19 World Cup as well, which we won. So that was the beginning of it. But I used to captain my club team. I used to captain state teams also, and I used to like the responsibility. Then I captained Ranji as well after that in a season with all the seniors around. So I was never overawed by captaincy or taking the team together. I think some things are destined to be. You're right. There are many cases that I can remember, many brilliant players, many talented players who did not make the cut, and that's an unfortunate part of our sport. We all know that. Someone you might have played with, which you thought this guy surely is going to go to the next level, they don't. So I think that's an unfortunate part of our sport. So it made me realize that if I'm getting the opportunity, I looked at it this way: if I'm getting the opportunity, I need to work as hard as I can. because not many people get this chance. So yeah, a lot of the players from that lot played the IPL. Played Jaddu is from that lot. Manish is from that lot. Saurabh Tiwari played for India. He's from that lot. So a lot of players played for Siddharth Kaul played from that lot. A lot of people who did well. So yeah, I think I was always inclined to taking responsibility. Becoming captain of India was not even in my wildest dreams, to be honest. We all started playing at a similar time. I mean, I made my test debut before you. You made it just after in the next series, if I'm not wrong.
Correct.
And after that, I think it was all about just wanting to play, wanting to be in the 11 regularly, wanting to, put my foot down and say, okay, I didn't play all the games, but I wanted to be discussed that, whether this guy is good enough to play or not. I think that is a transition slowly that happens. Then with your intrigue in the game, you start talking to the captain regularly. I was always in MS's ears, standing next to him, ye kar sakte, wo kar sakte, what do you think? He would deny a lot of things, but he would discuss a lot of things as well. So I think he got a lot of confidence that I can do this after him. I think it was a large portion of me becoming captain was also to do with him observing me for a long period of time. It just can't happen like, he goes and then selectors say, okay, you become captain. Obviously, the guy who's there, he takes responsibility and says, okay, I think this is the next guy. And I will tell you how he's going. And then slowly that transition is formed, which I think he played a big role in that. And that trust you have to build over 6-7 years. It just doesn't happen overnight. And I think it's a process.
Right. Interesting that you said that, because I asked this question with a lead up. You said about not imagining being captain of under 19 and then becoming captain of the Indian team. That is just a part of it, as I see it. It's the excellence of the cricketer, right? Which is what intrigues me so much. How you said it happened. I was intrigued by a lot of things. I asked questions. I wanted to learn, and that's how I became who I was, who I am rather. You're in a very settled form of part of your career. So, how do you see such cricketers who are very good at under 19 level and not be able to make the transition for excellence versus someone like you who's managed to do it successfully?
I think as there might be a few factors that play a role. One is self-belief. That for me is the biggest factor. I came into IPL as well and I felt like, man, how am I going to play against these international bowlers? You feel like you're not good enough and you just let go. I think that moment of when you're letting go, at that moment you need to find something that makes you say, no, I'm good enough and I'm going to try, because someone who made a big name was one day a nobody. So, they had to start somewhere. The people that we see play as legends or as greats of the game, they didn't become greats overnight. They didn't come from their, academies or state teams and say, I'm this great player and, I'm just going to start scoring at an average of 55 in test cricket. It doesn't happen like that. So that belief is something that you don't let go of. I think all the people that haven't let go of that belief and had that intrigue and the will to just, hone their skills and keep improving are the ones who went ahead. And that for me is a natural sort of separation that happens. And I'm sure everyone who's gone on and played for the country are the ones who wanted to constantly learn and be fearless. If you fear the environment that you're going in, then the sport only responds to fearlessness and wanting to learn and just being clear-headed in what you want to do. And I'm sure you went through the same journey, coming up the ranks. You would have been fearless to, bowl at anyone in front of you. If you were overawed by people, then people will obviously move forward. There's so much competition constantly in our country, especially playing cricket, that you can't afford to stay behind. You want to do things which are different. And for that, you need to be fearless and think out of the box. How can I do something which is not being done? If someone's picking 5-wicket hauls, how can I pick 8 in an innings regularly and be counted as, this guy is at a different level to where he's playing? I think that was my plan, at least. I wanted to perform more than anyone else was doing and doing things which were not done at that time. And slowly you build that sort of ladder for yourself.
Right. Now in your household right now, there are two excellent people, right? You are excellent in your field and Anushka is excellent in her field. So when you have two such excellent people in the same, household, how do you like cross verify this excellence? Is there a mode that you actually have where you discuss what do you do, how do I go about it? Do you discuss that?
I think the best thing is that when you have a life partner who's also working at a level of excellence, as you mentioned, in her own field, she can totally understand my mindset and I understand her mindset. And it becomes so easy to have conversations about what you're going through. What is it that is making you feel good or bad, or what happened during the day that sort of mentally put you down or mentally boosted your confidence. Small conversations like that. I think when two people are on the same wavelength, those conversations are very, very easy. And as you rightly pointed out, Anushka is brilliant at what she does. At her craft, she's outstanding. And for us, having conversations at that level is that much easier because she understands exactly what I'm saying. Without even me talking, with my body language, she can understand what I'm going through on the field. So that is the level of connect that happens when two people are at the same wavelength. And yeah, it's an amazing thing to experience.
It will surely be difficult for a lot of couple to understand that chemistry. But yes, Virat, I mean that's the truth. But see, for example, let's take Anushka's field for an example, and she has to choose a script which she's going to do or which she's going to produce or whatever it is, and choosing that script gets her to a certain destiny or excellence or whatever it is. Likewise, if you compare a cricketer, you've spoken about so much of your fitness regimen that's taken you where it's taken you today. How do you know, as a cricketer or anybody in life, forget about just being a cricketer, that when you are embarking on a certain route, that this is the route, I will persevere with this? Is there a trick where you make that decision?
Look, I would give you an example of Anushka first. Her making choices of what she wants to do as a project, as a film, as an actor, or as a producer comes from the right place. She's a person who always does the right thing, and she follows her gut, she follows her instinct, and she follows it to the T. She's absolutely fearless. So when she does that, she believes in that project, and I think that is key. That is something that I've also learned looking at her. To have that belief that you're doing the right thing, then whatever happens left, right, center, you're not bothered by it. There's a lot of negativity that comes your way, and she's strong enough to go through all that. So I have seen that, and I have learned that from her, because the more you keep growing and the more you keep going forward, there are a lot of doubts that come left, right, center. So that is something that you need to keep away. And I think in cricket, it's the same thing. If I believe, before a game, you feel like today, I feel like I'm going to bowl like this. As a batsman, I'm going to play positively today. And that spark always comes to everyone. It's, do you have the will to follow that spark
right
to the hilt? Because sometimes I felt like today I'm going to go out there and be positive. Then I won't ask 5 people, I'm thinking of playing positive. What do you think? No. If I'm convinced, I'm going to go and do it. And if I fail, I'm going to own up to my failures. I think that's very important. Sometimes we feel like, yes, there's some positive spark, but then we sort of take confirmation around us, and then that spark sort of goes down, and then doubt creeps in. Should I or should I not? When you're absolutely sure of what you want to do, you're just sitting there and you're just waiting to be in the pressure situation and be like, okay, this is what I committed myself to. I'm just going to go out there and follow my heart, and let's see what happens. That thing of saying, let's see what happens, because I feel I'm making the right decision, and if it doesn't go right, I will accept it. But I won't curb my instinct just to entertain my doubts. I think that clarity is very, very important.
Right. I don't think you could have nailed it any better. You just saying believe in it and just go through it without having any doubt. So it'll
absolutely. Absolutely.
Great. So just one different genre, slightly changing over. You are, so to say, today Destiny's child. At one point of time, Sachin Tendulkar was that, right? And now you are the person that people are looking to emulate. In this case, there is an evolution of social media going around. What is more tougher to handle for you, Virat? Fame or criticism?
Ash, to be honest, I mean, I love this sport, and I know that I totally love this sport. I love playing this sport. I know you're a fanatic as well, so you can relate to what I'm saying. I don't know the details as much as you know, because you know players from every corner.
You're not going to hide behind that. See how much you spoke about Hobart. I didn't even inform you about it.
No, I spoke of Hobart because I went through it. You know of players who I haven't even heard in my life. You know their stats. You know their last innings. That is bizarre. I can't have that level of information in my brain. I can't process it. But on a serious note, I love this sport, and I love the opportunity to do something which can inspire people. I love the opportunity to do that. And playing for your country is the biggest honor for any sports person. We all experience that. Having said that, if someone told me, would you like to give all your fame away? I would give it like that. Because over a period of time, you realize that you're doing what is important, but you also need to be a normal person at the end of the day. You want to be a normal person. I think when you speak of previous times, people had a lot more freedom to move around. They were not camera phones in your face all the time, scanning everything that you're doing minute to minute every day. And I think both Anushka and myself, we are people that are very, very comfortable in our own space, being with each other, being at home, just doing basic normal things. Fame, too much attention, too much intrusion, too much, interest into what we want to do, what we are doing, what we are, looking at, what we might do tomorrow, or what we were thinking, or, people have different kinds of perceptions all the time. That I don't really relate to it. And I think it might also be because we have grown up in a time where these things were not a part of us growing up. We did not grow up with social media constantly in our lives. So if we want to today, you can easily get off social media for as long as you like, and get back to it when you want to use it, which might be very difficult for people who are growing up with it today. It's a different time in life, and I think that is something that I would any day say, take it away from me, to be honest.
Right. So handling it has never been an issue, right? Because criticism you've always handled. Okay, there it is, the disturbance.
Dad, we are coming to say hi.
Okay. Right.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay. Right. No shouting. Okay.
How are
Girls,
you?
thank you. Say hi. He's asking how you are.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good to
you
see
are the
you.
big girl and I am the small girl.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, I understood that.
Right. Thank you, girls. Okay.
Yeah.
So see, they made their appearance. They do that. They are the showstoppers.
Yeah.
Right. So Virat, just so that you said you are able to handle criticism much better. We've always seen you handle it a lot better. But fame is something. Why I asked that question for fame was because I have seen you constantly, delivering messages that are close to your heart. Once there was this video that yourself and Anushka had made about a social awareness cause, and people, when there is ample opportunity to see it positively, people tend to choose the negative aspect of it. How difficult is it? Because as someone who you've seen around the world, you want certain things for your country, you want certain things for your fellow countrymen and countrywomen. How do you receive that? Is it cussed, or do you say, okay, people are going to be like that and move on?
Look, obviously, seeing that response different from what you saw the situation like, you do get disturbed by it. But at the end of the day, you realize that it's someone else's opinion. So
Right.
if I'm putting my opinion out there, or Anushka's putting her opinion out there, it is not necessary that everyone should agree with it, and everyone will not agree with it, and that is fine. But are we going to change our decision because of others' opinion? No, we are not. So I think the balance is that you do what, as I said, what feels right to you. You do it from your heart. Then all this distraction and negativity, it is there as a challenge every day in your life anyway. And these are hurdles you need to constantly overcome. Because one thing I realized is if people are not happy seeing you move, then they want you to stop because they don't want to move. As long as you want to keep moving and keep evolving in life and keep moving forward, because anything that you're doing is not permanent. Today we play, tomorrow we're not going to play forever. So holding on to something, or being insecure about something, or all that stuff has no place. We both feel like that. It has no place in life. And I think it's very important to follow your heart and not worry about what people say. You go out there and you say and you do what you feel is right. Because if you're doing it with the right intent, there will be positive feedback where it matters. You can't make a decision thinking the whole country is going to stand with me. It is impossible. A joke is taken out of context. People look at a certain thing and they create versions of it themselves according to their understanding or insecurities, which you can't control. So unfortunately it's become a world today where constantly people are looking for others' approval to make themselves feel okay. Have I taken the right decision? Let me see how many people like this decision. Then I will figure out whether it's right or wrong. But at the point of making that decision, you are by yourself. You're not taking a poll of 40,000 people every decision that you take in your life.
True.
So when you've taken one, don't change it because others don't like it. It's that's how we lead our lives.
Awesome. That's awesome to hear. I think people are taking a leaf out of that book. But Virat, finally, before I let you go, you've been graceful enough to come and honor this finale of my episode. But what is spirituality for you, Virat? We know that you've tended to love spirituality. A lot of people mix spirituality with religiousness. What is spirituality for Virat, the cricketer? And how are you using it, or how are you using it as a tool to counter this very, very tough times for all of us?
I think spirituality, what I've come to understand of it is staying in the present moment, being one with your own self. And as I said, I believe a lot in energies. So if you're present, you will feel energy of a situation, of a person around you, of the place you're in. And that connect of energy with nature, with that one energy which is present all around us, is the meaning of spirituality for me. Spirituality means working on your own self constantly. That is something that both me and Anushka, we constantly discuss that. And it is all about working on yourself. And that is something that, it's very difficult to do. And we've had those discussions. And one thing that Anushka keeps saying is that the only thing that is, the purpose for us all is to keep working on ourselves and keep, refining our own selves, which I think is the meaning of spirituality for us. So that is what I think of it. And spirituality also means being fearless for me, because as long as you're doing things which come from the heart, there's gut feel is things that come from your heart, and where heart functions, you can't use this. And there's no room for calculation and analyzing, is it right, wrong, nothing. Just feel it and just go for it. Just being free, just letting your energy flow and just going for it. That is what it means to me. And I think this time is teaching all of us to let go, to, really figure out how we want to move ahead. Obviously, considering all the people that are going through a very, very difficult time right now, wanting to help them, having the intent to help one another, having the intent to do good things, having the intent to do the correct thing and follow it through the way. That, I think, for us is the learning from this phase, and I hope it is the learning for all people in our country and all over the world as well.
Do you see the game changing a lot? Do you see it's waiting for a long period of time?
Game changing a lot. Man, I don't know what's gonna happen. It is so strange thinking even of practice sessions. Like instinctively, you wanna you can't do that. You will meet people and you will be like you're meeting after months, and you'll have to sort of just fold hands and just stand away. Which I know it sounds strange, but it might be a permanent feature moving ahead until there is some sort of cure and vaccine whenever it comes out. I think we will have to sort of follow that system and make it a part of our lives, which is going to be new for all of us. I'm sure that we'll all find it strange, but eventually, like everything else in life, like people took to social media, I think this won't be that difficult to make a part of our lives and follow a system which I think is going to be good for everyone. It has to be very, very important.
Right. In fact, as we said that in Australia, they have started playing competitive tennis, having their own set of balls. So I think things will change and pan out, because I just saw David Warner make a comment here. So I wanted to ask him did he watch any tennis matches? So anyway,
he's been making TikTok videos.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It's unbelievable.
He's been after my life.
Has he? Okay.
He's been asking me to do one. I haven't responded yet, but I will.
No, I think if there is a dinosaur thing that TikTok has, you should definitely give it a go.
I think that might become a feature on it now.
I think so. I think it should. And there were people who were talking about it and said dinosaur on the loose. Yeah, so that's.
and there were so many memes, they were hilarious.
Yeah, it was last chat I was having. Sangakara just told me that he's a dinosaur at social media, which means he's in the past, and it was unreal, man. It was unreal. Right, thank you so much, Virat. You've made this a very, very special occasion for me and all the people who've been following this. And hope you have a good day and good night. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ash. You take care. Take care of your family as well. And congrats on a wonderfully done series, wonderfully compiled. And I'm glad I could, be the finisher and stay there till the end.
Get back
Cheers,
to,
Ash.
get back to the stories and follow the promo that I put. I put a Game of Thrones theme for you.
Oh, okay. I'll check it out. Okay.
So
cool.
you love the Jon Snow of it, right?
Okay.
See you, Virat.
Cheers,
Bye,
Ash.
bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.